Did you know that 1 in 4 Americans trading in their cars has an underwater loan? That means they owe more than the car is actually worth, turning what should have been a practical purchase into one of the worst financial decisions they've made. And I feel like it's not just with a few unlucky people. The problem is actually growing. More Americans are falling behind on payments and loan balances are rising faster than car values. I have a lot of friends who are quietly struggling to keep up with their car loans, but I was surprised to learn just how widespread that this whole thing has become. But you know, it wasn't always like this. Not that long ago, buying a car didn't feel like a financial trap. So what did I do? I started looking into what changed, and in this video, I'm going to share with you exactly what I found. You see, to understand why car prices are so high today, we need to take a step back and look at how the market shifted over the past few years. To make this more, concrete, let's look at the journey of a Honda CR-V, which is one of the most popular cars among middle-class Americans. Typically, they're manufactured in Ohio or Indiana. So if you look back to, say, 2020, a brand new CR-V cost around $25,000, and a used one that was a few years older sold for about $20,000. Back then, dealerships had a lot of cars in stock, so they were often willing to give discounts just to move them off the lot. Because people were staying at home and worried about their jobs and income, car companies thought no one would be buying cars. So what did they do? Well, they canceled their orders for computer chips, which are essential to making modern cars work. But then something crazy happened where demand came back faster than anyone expected. By 2021, more people were ready to buy cars again, but the car companies weren't ready yet. You see, a lot of these chip manufacturers had already shifted to making parts for other things like laptops and other work from home gear. So when car makers tried to order chips again, they had to wait. That left companies like Honda with thousands of cars sitting in storage completely built but missing the chips they needed to run. So if you remember back in Economics 101, what happened? Well, with few cars available to sell, prices went up really fast. In 2021, the same CR-V cost around $26,500, and a used one was going about for around $24,500. On top of that, many dealers started charging thousands extra above the regular price simply because, well, they could. And this continued into 2022 with new CR-Vs going for $28,000 and used ones at $26,000. And yeah, they still had all these extra markups at these dealerships. So after some time had passed, something interesting happened. Dealers and car makers realized that keeping inventory low meant they didn't need to offer discounts anymore. They could sell fewer cars and still make a whole bunch of money. So even after supply started to improve, they chose not to bring prices back down. By 2023, the chip storage had mostly eased, but car prices stayed, well, relatively high. A new CR-V now costs around $29,500 and a used one around $27,500, and dealers were still adding extra fees on top. In 2024, prices finally started to settle a bit. A new CR-V ticked up slightly to around $30,000 and a used one dropped to around $26,000. And some dealers even started offering small discounts again. But you know what? This actually didn't last, because in 2025, return to office rules meant more people needed cars again. At the same time, manufacturing costs went up because of tariffs on materials like steel and aluminum. Even though the CR-V is built in the US, a lot of the other parts are actually imported, so it still got more expensive. Now in 2025, a new Honda CR-V costs about $31,500 and a used one is back up to around $27,000 with, again, dealers adding more fees on top of them. So if you, crunch all the numbers on your calculator, that's more than a 25% increase in just 5 years. And the car itself hasn't really changed. You're now just paying more for the same thing. For me, I feel like this reminds me of the food at theme parks like Disneyland. Once the vendors realized that people would pay, like $12 for a hot dog or for a turkey leg, the prices never went back down, even though the hot dog didn't even change at all. And dealerships saw the same thing. People were still buying cars even as prices climbed, so they kept them high. So what does it actually cost to buy a car today? So let's say that all this talk about a Honda CR-V has caught your attention and you head to your local dealership to pick one up for yourself in a fancy red metallic. First, it's worth noting that getting a car loan has become easier over the last couple of years. Lenders and dealerships have lowered the standards for approval, with many sources highlighting loans available for bad credit. So what does this mean? Well, this means that for more people, even those with lower credit scores and lower income, they can qualify for car loans. In fact, in 2024, roughly 16 to 17% of new car loans went to subprime borrowers with credit scores below 620. So even if you earn, say, $45,000 a year and have a credit score in the low 600s, you might still qualify for a car loan, even if your finances suggest that you may struggle with payments long term. Now, I don't know if you know this, but once you drive that new car off the lot, its value drops immediately. A new $31,500 Honda CR-V will lose at least 10% of its value the moment it leaves the dealership. This means that it's now worth less than $28,350. And if you really think about it, that's a loss of more than $3,000 in a matter of minutes. So let's say that you finance the car with a 72-month loan, which is 6 years at an interest rate of about 7.5%, which is near average for borrowers without excellent credit in 2025. If you do the math, your monthly payments would be around $560. By the end of the loan, you will have paid roughly $40,300, including about $8,800 in interest. And this is assuming that you make every payment on time. Now, I know this might sound crazy, but by the time you finish paying, the car might be worth only $12,000 to $15,000, depending on mileage and condition. And yeah, this is where it leaves you with an underwater loan where what you owe is far more than what the car is actually valued at. But sadly, the costs don't just stop there. Remember, you're gonna have to pay for other things like state fees, which average around $500 per year. And there's insurance, which typically is $2,100 per year. And of course, there's gas, which is around $2,000 per year, depending on how much you drive and fuel prices. There's maintenance and repairs averaging about $1,200 per year. And altogether, that adds up to nearly $480 per month just to keep the car running on top of your $560 monthly loan payment. So again, if you crunch all the numbers, in total, you're spending around $1,040 per month to own and operate your car. To put that into perspective, the average monthly salary in the US before tax is about $6,200. That means that many Americans spend roughly 17% of their gross income just on their car. And to add further context, let's look at how much you could have saved if you decided not to buy a car. If you instead saved or, invested that $1,040 every month into a Roth IRA, earning about 10% average returns over 6 years, you'd end up with roughly $96,000. And if you really think about that, you could buy around 3 CR-Vs outright and still have money left over to keep investing. Now, if you're new to investing and you don't know where to start and you want to see returns like this, I highly recommend that you join my free beginners investing masterclass. More than 50,000 people have already joined my class, and I'll show you how to buy your first shares and manage your investments starting with $100. I'll leave the link in the description if you're interested. So all in all, what should you do? Well, first, don't get a car if you don't need it. In an ideal world, you wouldn't need to buy a car at all. In countries like the Netherlands, most people cycle to work instead of sitting in traffic or dealing with high gas prices. If you look back after World War II, the Dutch city of Rotterdam was almost completely destroyed by bombings. But when it was rebuilt, the Dutch used the opportunity to redesign their public spaces, which include extensive cycling infrastructure. Today, the Netherlands has more bicycles than people, and cycling is fully integrated into everyday life. In the US, the opposite actually happened. In the early 20th century, influential urban planners like Robert Moses prioritized infrastructure for cars. He built expressways that cut through working-class neighborhoods and intentionally designed overpasses such as those on Long Island, too low for public buses, making them inaccessible to low-income communities. At the same time, zoning laws across the country mandated large parking requirements, separated residential and commercial zones, and discouraged mixed-use development. And yeah, these policies made it difficult to live without a car. Fast forward to today, and getting around without one can be nearly impossible in many parts of the country. I feel like owning a car has become a big part of the American dream. It's kind of seen like a symbol of freedom, independence, and even success. And yeah, pop culture plays into this too, like with movies like The Fast and the Furious, where they glamorize car ownership and make it feel like it's something that you need to make it. When I was younger, I definitely believed that. In my early teaching years, one of the first things I saved up for was a car. I wasn't making much, but having my own vehicle felt like the responsible adult thing to do. But really, if I didn't live in SoCal, I most likely wouldn't want to own a car because of all the expenses. But there are many US cities and towns where they are becoming more walkable and transit friendly. Places like Seattle offer protected bike lanes and neighborhood paths. And in Newark, they even have e-scooters and e-bikes for hire called Newark Go that locals often use to commute to work. So before you commit to buying a car, take a moment to ask whether you truly need one. In many cases, it could just be more of a want rather than a need. If you take a closer look at your environment and compare your options honestly, you might find that owning a car just isn't worth it. Maybe you can request a transfer to a city or a town that's more walkable. Maybe you can set up a Lyft club with your colleagues. Maybe you can move closer to your jobs, shops, and necessary amenities. Or maybe you can do the math and find out that the occasional rideshare is more affordable than owning your own car. But if you've exhausted all of your options and owning a car is the only way for you to get around, then it's important for you to do it as efficiently as possible. First, you need to make sure that you can, of course, actually afford a car. Taking on a large amount of debt can hold you back far more than a car can move you forward. Before applying for a car loan, it's ideal to have a credit score of at least 661, which is considered good by Experian, or 670 on the FICO scale. You can still get a loan with a lower score, but your interest rate will be much higher, which means that you're going to pay more every single month. Let's say that you have a credit score of, say, 580, and you're approved for a $25,000 loan at an interest rate of 12% over 6 years. That would give you a monthly payment of about $495 with around $7,600 in interest paid over the life of the loan. But say your credit score is pretty good, it's around 720, you might qualify for a rate of 6% instead. In that case, your monthly payment would be around $415 and you'd only pay about $4,800 in interest. And if you find the difference, that's nearly $2,800 saved. It can take a few months to raise your credit score, which gives you the perfect opportunity to test your budget. Start putting aside the full amount that you expect to pay for a car each month, including the loan payments, gas, insurance, and maintenance, and save it in a separate account. This is going to do two things. First, it's going to show you whether your budget can realistically support the cost of a car. It helps you build a lump sum for a down payment and upfront expenses like registration and title fees. If after, say, 6 months, you find that saving this amount is too much of a stretch, that's a strong sign that owning a car right now might not be affordable. But the good news is that you'll saved up a decent amount in the process, which you can now maybe either just leave it in your high yield savings or invest it in the stock market. And if you decide to go ahead later and buy a car, then your improved credit score can help you secure a much lower interest rate and save you thousands over the life of your loan. Now, once you're ready to move forward, it's time to choose a car. If you look at some of the richest people in the world, you'll find out that most of them drive older, modest vehicles. Warren Buffett, for example, kept his 2006 Cadillac DTS for nearly a decade before upgrading. Today, he drives a Cadillac XTS, which is worth about $45,000, which is well below what he could afford. So for me, when I was growing up, I was so embarrassed by my parents' Toyota Camry, so much that I'd ask them to drop me off far from the school's gate. But looking back now, I'm grateful that they chose to prioritize things like my education over driving an expensive car. Honestly, buying a brand new car is rarely worth it. The biggest hit in value comes in the first few years, and that loss comes out of your pocket. After doing all the math, I found out that the sweet spot is buying a car that's between 3 to 5 years old. By then, it's already taken most of its depreciation, but still has many years of reliable use ahead. The beauty of this is that you're going to be paying less in sales tax, insurance will be relatively cheaper, and you'll be able to avoid the steepest drop in value. And look, if you're pretty responsible and it's well maintained, you probably won't need to worry about excessive repairs. I know that the new car smell is kind of tempting, but let's be honest, you can just go on Amazon and literally buy a new car smell air freshener for, like $5 or $10. When my friend was shopping for a car recently, I encouraged him to look at 3-year-old models. And guess what? He found a reliable Toyota Corolla for thousands less than the new version and avoided the initial depreciation altogether. Now, after buying your car, one of the easiest ways to save money is by regular shopping around for cheaper insurance. Every 12 months, call a few competing providers to see if they'll offer you a better deal. There are a lot of insurers like Progressive where they will promise to give you cash or discounts if they can't beat your current rate. You might also save by paying your insurance annually instead of monthly. cheaply. For example, Geico offers up to a 12% discount if you pay up front for the entire year. Now, if you have other types of insurance like maybe renters or home insurance, you might be able to bundle them up with your car insurance for even more savings. For example, Amica offers up to 30% off, and Liberty Mutual claims that you can save up to $950 with multi-policy discounts. And now once you saved all of this money, you want to start investing and you're tired of Googling how to invest, I'm telling you, my beginner's investing class is the answer. I'm going to share with you what accounts to open up, how much to invest based on your age, and what to invest in that helped me become a millionaire myself. And it's crazy to say this, but over 50,000 people have already joined my class, and you can sign up to see why. I'll leave a link here or down below, and I hope to see you in class.